Okay, so this video won't be too awfully long, but just gonna give you a couple of pointers about measuring. Like say we're gonna measure the length of this box. Okay, that's part of what we were. Oops, that's part of what we were doing. And you want to get a box to use for this experiment. Something that's bigger than 1 foot anyway. There's a reason why we want that. Doesn't have to be a lot bigger, but just bigger. Shoe box might be big enough. Pizza box maybe if it's a large pizza. So some kind of box that's decent rectangular size, bigger than 1 foot long, at least on one side. Okay, now everything I was just telling you about smallest division and so on, that's all fine as long as you're talking about nice, easy measurements where marks line up well and everything. Now, sometimes you run into little issues. One of them might be with this box, okay? What if I was trying to measure on one side and I find out, let's see, okay. Yeah. Well, the ruler, if I'm using a ruler like this, the ruler is not big enough to measure the whole length, okay? That's why we wanted you to, so you'd be faced with this situation. So it's not quite big enough, so, and you probably know what to do on that. You measure what you can with the ruler, and then you maybe make a mark with a pencil or something, and then measure the rest of it, okay? So you can do that. That's perfectly fine. You have to if this is the only instrument you've got. So what you can do is you could say, okay, when I made the first measurement, I could have been plus or minus 0.1 centimeter off then. Now maybe when I make the other measurement, you could argue that I could also be another plus or minus 0.1 centimeter off again. So maybe I should say that I could be as much as plus or minus 0.2 centimeters off. Okay, so that would be one way of thinking of it. All right, so if you got to lay the ruler down more than once, then you might want to go 2 divisions on your uncertainty. Other thing that can happen is, what if I measure on this side of the box and I turn it around and then I measure on the other side, okay? Now I'm assuming it's rectangular, it ought to be equal, but what if I get slightly different? What if I get a slightly different length on the other side? But if I'm being asked to report just one length, what am I going to say? Well, I might average them together, okay? That's kind of what they're going to have you do as part of the exercise is measuring a different side. You might get slightly different, and it'll guide you into what you do about that. All right. Okay. Other big thing in this experiment is measuring mass or weight. All right. So one of the things that you need in this lab for this experiment is a roll of coins, and we're going to recommend a roll of dimes. A roll of pennies could work too. There's a reason why dimes might be better for another experiment we're going to do later, actually. So anyway, dimes or pennies, you could take a roll of one of those, and you got to know how much it weighs. You got to find out how much it weighs. Well, if it were a real face-to-face lab, we have plenty of balances in the lab where you can measure mass, but you probably don't have one at home. It's possible some people might have a scale, like an electronic scale in their kitchen that they use if they're cooking and measuring out amounts of food and stuff like that. If you've got one of those, then, and it seems to be precise and work pretty well, then you could use that. That would be nice and easy. A bathroom scale like you step on and get your weight is, I would think, probably not good. You might try it, but I would think that because they're made to measure human bodies, which are heavier, but to measure something lighter, it's probably not going to be fine enough for us, okay? But in any event, you've got your iOlab device. You can actually measure mass with it, and here's how you do it. So here's the iOlab, and there's a little hook or a little loop that will attach on the bottom. We haven't used it yet, but anyway, that should have come in your box with a couple of other little attachments. So you screw that in, and then you can hang, okay? So, like that, okay. So you can hang the roll of coins from the iOlab, all right? So with the software, you can set it up where it'll tell you how much force is being applied to the iOlab, and that'll be the weight of the dimes, okay? So that's how we can get it. And we're going to use that technique actually in a lot of the other experiments we do. I think almost all of them, really. almost all of them, maybe not all of them. Or if you've got a nice scale at home, you can use that. But in any event, I think you probably can't go wrong with the iOlab. It'll do a pretty good job on that as long as you can find some way to suspend it. Okay, alrighty, so we're good.